Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
I am well, Lake. How are you?
Doing pretty good. A little bit of a hectic morning to get started, but excited for this episode, as I am excited for all of them. That's how I start like every show.
It is how you start every show. I have not woken up, so this would be a fun... You'd think we're recording at 6 a.m. too. It's 9, for crying out loud.
I'm up and awake. It was just a busy morning, buddy.
Yes.
But we have an exciting guest with us today. We would like to welcome back Amanda, also known as Once Upon a Marathon. Amanda, how are you today?
I am good. Excited to be here.
I literally refer to you as Once Upon a Marathon anytime I have a reason to... You come up in conversation, it's Once Upon a Marathon said this. So
I love it. I love it. I answer to it all, so.
And if you don't follow Amanda already, she is extremely analytical and thorough in her details on all topics, but especially Run Disney, and she gets into a lot of cruise line and DVC info as well. So definitely make sure to give her a follow.
Just Instagram, and then I have a website with some registration guides for the races and things like that, but mostly Instagram.
yeah, with Amanda's deep dives, if Disney ever does a new thing, there's talk about who maybe a new CEO will be, or somebody is suing Disney for some reason, she'll go into the most in-depth analysis of what is happening. It is gold. I do not prefer to always read all the articles that come out, and I don't have to because I just go to Amanda anytime something good like that happens. She will have it covered, and I can find out all the real dirt that I need because she's used her little analytical brain to analyze whatever the thing is and tell us what we need to know. I absolutely love it.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was on the quarterly earnings call this morning for Disney, prior to this.
See, I missed that. Ooh, what'd they say? Did you post it yet? I'll go
I
find
haven't
it.
posted it yet. No,
Okay.
It's nothing too crazy. Overall, things looking pretty good. Did as expected. No big swings or dips.
We do have quite a bit to unpack here because not only do we have a cruise to discuss, we have a little pre-cruise and post-cruise stay to talk about as well. Amanda, why don't you start by talking about what cruise we booked?
Yeah, so I booked the Disney Fantasy out of Port Canaveral. I had never ridden the Fantasy before. I've done the Dream twice, once kind of in the Caribbean and once out in Norway. So I knew I liked that class ship, wanted to try the Fantasy. I was running the marathon at Walt Disney World Marathon weekend. And when I was looking at the cruise schedules, I realized I could run the race and then recover on the boat. And that seemed like the best idea. So I booked the Disney Fantasy for right after the race.
I think every marathon recovery should occur on a cruise ship.
Right. It was such a great idea. It was a 4-nighter, I believe. We did Nassau, the new Lookout Point, and just a day at sea. So
Yeah, post-race cruises are my absolute favorite. Usually once Run Disney posts the next schedule, I will make a list of every cruise that leaves after each race weekend and send it to people and be like, all right, which one are we booking?
yes. And I wasn't doing Dopey or the Big Challenge. I was doing a standalone race, the marathon. So I had enough time that I back-ended the trip. So I went down for the marathon and then had the cruise afterwards, as opposed to going down early and doing all of the races. So it worked out pretty well. It's so easy to get to Port Canaveral from Disney too. So it's so convenient.
Well, before we get on the ship, why don't we dive into your race weekend just a little bit? Tell us where you stayed, a little bit about how your marathon went, and then also how you got to the port.
Yeah, so stayed at the Riviera in a 1-bedroom. It's overkill for me and my husband, but there's a washing machine and dryer in every 1-bedroom or larger, generally speaking, at DVC rooms. So it's so nice to be able to do the race weekend and wash all of the laundry, pack it up, and then just leave that luggage in the car and not even take it on the ship with us. It's kind of just done and squared away, and we start our next vacation.
Why does that not surprise me that that's what you do? I mean, first of all, you don't want disgusting laundry sitting and waiting from a race, but also the fact that you literally wash it all up and leave it.
Credit to my husband. He does a lot of the laundry and washing and organization, but we have all of our costumes for both of us. We have all of the dirty clothes from running and sweating and things like that. So we'll wash it, pack it in a suitcase. It takes up the whole suitcase. There's no reason for us to take that on the boat. So we drive down to Disney and then from Disney to Port Canaveral. So we just kind of leave it and lock it in the car, in the trunk. So we don't have to lug it around for the second half of the vacation. So yeah. You asked about where we were staying. I mentioned the Riviera. It's my favorite resort. I know everybody has their own little biases, but I love having the Skyliner. I love being close to Epcot and Hollywood Studios. Just the food, all of it. It's nice and quiet. It's perfect for a race weekend. So that's our go-to. It's also our home resort. So.
And how was your race?
Race went very well. I got a marathon PR, so very excited about that. Yeah. We lucked up and had really good weather for the marathon. It was cold if you were trying to do the parks, but perfect if you were running 26.2 miles. So that worked out so well.
Every other day of Dopey was worth the suffering to have what I would consider is perfect weather to run a marathon in.
It really was perfect weather, like 10 out of 10 weather. And I feel like it's so rare too for Florida because it's usually, was it like the last 2 years? It was heat advisories, storms. So running, I think it was like 40s in the morning, 50s by the time I crossed. So really perfect for running.
Yeah, that was an excellent weekend for sure. We were all excited to be able to participate. But let's go ahead and turn towards our sailing. So you drive to Port Canaveral. Any notes on your embarkation process?
No, we kind of have it down to a science. We go to the parking garage. We park on the third floor so we can walk straight across the air bridge. No elevators needed. Go down. They're renovating the escalator, so it was kind of weird getting the security, but they had signs and stuff like that. And we just right through security. We had an early boarding time, so we just walked right on the boat, and it was super simple.
And who sailed with you?
It was my husband, Nick, and then our good friend, Casey, who also ran the race with us. She had a different room, but she had booked the same sailing.
Awesome. So you go through embarkation and you board what is unarguably and unbiasedly our favorite ship in the fleet, the Disney Fantasy. What were your thoughts on boarding the Fantasy for the first time?
Oh my gosh, it was so interesting because I have an attachment to the Dream. It was the first Disney ship I'd ever done. And then Norway, the beautiful vistas and the scenery, and that class ship has like that walk around deck, the teak walk around deck. So perfect for sightseeing. Fantasy is the same layout. And I'd always heard that the Fantasy was better. You know, it's like the Dream, but just tweaked a little bit to make it just that much better. I can see the improvements that they made between the Dream and the Fantasy, specifically around the bar area. It's the district on the Dream, but Europa on the Fantasy. They did a better job kind of just connecting the bars and rooms a little bit on terms of flow and the layout of things, the carousel in the middle versus the bar in the back, that sort of stuff. However, I think, and this is totally personal preference.
I don't like a sentence that starts with however when we're talking about our favorite child, but go on.
Well, I think that the Art Deco vibes and the deep blues and reds are prettier, and I prefer that aesthetic on the Dream versus the Fantasy's Art Nouveau, and it has that seafoam green and the pinks and things like that. Obviously, Disney's going to lean into a theme and kill it no matter what. But I think I liked the Art Deco over the Art Nouveau for the rest of the ship. The bar area, Europa, is better than the district. And that is, I think, where they made the bulk of the improvements. But I think overall theming, just like, you know, color schemes, artwork, stuff like that, I preferred on the Dream, which I was surprised by.
Okay, fine. We'll still let you record the rest of this episode.
No, I like that. We don't get a lot of Dream love, to be honest. Not that anyone, I think, dislikes the Dream, but for a while it was just the ship that did 3 and 4 night sailings.
Yeah, so I think that's another interesting thing. I was on the Dream for 7 nights in Norway, and I do think there's just such a massive experience difference between being on a boat for 4 nights versus being on a boat for 7 nights. And then when I was on the Fantasy, it was a 4-nighter, right? So I kind of had the Dream experience on the Fantasy.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Yeah. But I wanted to do the Fantasy while it was still at Port Canaveral and easy to get to. No regrets at all. If the Fantasy, well, I know the Fantasy's going out over to Europe this summer. Last summer it was the Dream. I would ride either in Europe. Like, definitely could see both in the future. I could tell on the Fantasy that it was time for dry dock. You know, like DVC rooms when you're getting close to that soft refurb. Kind of same thing. And it was funny because all the cast members were like, yeah, we're going into dry dock like a month from now, right before the European leg. So it's about to get spiffy. Also was interesting for me, just first impressions, you know, so it's Art Nouveau theming. all of that is kind of integrated into it. I've been on, I think the Wish was the last ship I was on last summer. And I think the more these new ships roll out, the more dated parts of the Dream and Fantasy are going to look. The layout, I still think, is superior. Having all of the adult spaces in one area, the way that they've handled the pools, having better pools, Cove Cafe, all of that, I think, is better on kind of the Dream Fantasy class ships. But like the bathrooms, like the Wish having the more modernized bathrooms and the footlights and things like that, I think the more you get used to that as the new standard, the more you're going to be like, oh, this could use kind of just like a complete redo. So I would not be surprised if we saw in the next couple of years them gut the bathrooms and go away from kind of the bright red and blue tile with the white and into the more subway tile modern aesthetics. Especially, like, I'm harping on the bathrooms because I think that's where you see it the most. It's like the most obvious. I also think I'm right because the Dream just gutted and redid the concierge lounge to make it look like Hercules, like a Hercules theming. And it's beautiful. And I'm like, oh, Disney realizes because they're starting with the concierge spaces. I'm sure that that's going to eventually roll out to other spaces as well. Still prefer that class though.
There is nothing wrong with that. I think we all here are in that same fan club. And I think Disney recognizes that too, because they have announced, while we're not discussing the Wonder and the Magic, there are more or less replacements plans coming out for those ships. So it will be interesting to see kind of what comes from the Magic and Wonder, but then what's also incorporated from things like the Treasure and the Wish.
It just better be a running track. Disney, there better be a running track on any new ship designed, because not having a full ship walkway, it hurts my soul.
It's a choice for sure. It's not just for, runners like us, like accessibility, just
right? All those stairs and
around. It's also just looking at general trends in the market. And I'm sure Disney knows these way better than I do. But, Virgin Voyages just launched their ships. They kind of leaned into the health and fitness thing, and they have it's a running track, but it's not the same as the walking deck. It's actually a raised track at the top that kind of floats over the lounge areas. So it'll be interesting to see what Disney leans into and does on future ships for sure.
And Royal Caribbean puts their walking track still mostly on like the deck 5 or whatever their
with the lifeboat floating.
Yes. Yeah, their walk around track, and it goes the entire length of these ships. And then, and I think older ships, it would have been up by the pool deck, and Celebrity also puts it up by the pool deck. So there's still actually a walking path. On the Edge class, it's interesting because it goes up a floor. So like Disney's going up and down the floor on deck on the Wish class, but lower. They just make you incline. So you get like a little incline in your workout. So you move from like a deck, I don't know what the deck numbers are, but let's say they're deck 13 to 14 or 14 to 15. It moves up that.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's nice because you get a little incline action during your workout.
It's also nice just to have it, because usually when you have a walking track like that, you're going to have the best views, or you'll be able to see, and you can kind of feel like you're out and amongst it. So I think it does a lot for the ship experience that's maybe underrated, because people are like, who's working out on vacation? And it's like, well, it's so much more than working out, right? It's taking a walk, it's seeing the sights, without doing the pool thing or the bar thing. It's a ability to just, hey, we just left dinner, we just left lunch, let's take a walk,
Right.
Also, those loungers on the Dream and Fantasy down there are so comfortable.
One of my favorite memories is I had a cup of coffee from Cove Cafe laying on the lounger on that deck on the Dream, watching the fjords in Norway as we sailed into port. And I just was like sipping my coffee, like this is life. This is the best decision.
Love it. Well, let's turn it back to the current sailing here.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your embarkation day. I feel like this is the day that everyone has like a very specific itinerary and like a very specific imagination of how your embarkation day goes.
We went right on the ship, walked on, didn't have to wait for a group call or anything like that. Kind of timed it perfectly. Get on the ship. Our room was ready pretty quickly. So we were able to just kind of go straight to the room with our luggage and things like that. And we had booked the Start Your Morning Right class. I'd never really seen it before. It was like a new offering. Casey had found it in the app and was like, let's go do it. So we went to it, and it's the Juice Bar next to Senses Spa is where it was held. It was only 30 minutes, but man, did they pack it in those 30 minutes. We got 3 cocktails and 3 smoothies. So 6 drinks, and they were like full size. So it was a Bloody Mary, a screwdriver, and a mimosa. And then their 3 main smoothies that they sell on board. So it was a lot.
So it was like a drink tasting?
Yeah, it was a drink tasting, but it was breakfast drinks. So I say breakfast drinks, but like morning
Right.
mimosa, screwdriver, Bloody Mary. But they alternated it. So they started with the mimosa, and then we got the kale tonic smoothie, and then they went to the Bloody Mary, and then we got a different smoothie, and then they ended with the screwdriver and sent us on our way. So it was like drink after drink after drink. And they told us the story of like how those drinks came to be and why they're associated with breakfast in the morning, and not because drinking is typically, like an evening affair. So it was kind of a cool drinking class. It's only offered on embarkation day. That's the only time that they do it. And it's the only time they do it with like those drinks. There's martini classes and whiskey tastings and other things. And we had done a whiskey tasting later in the sailing, but this was like first drink class that was breakfast stuff, I guess. And I should say my husband and Casey both love a Bloody Mary, and I do not. So this was kind of their way of getting their Bloody Mary in. So it worked out good. The only thing is the venue, because it's the Juice Bar, is a little odd, because they also do all of the spa tours that first day because it's embarkation day. So it's just like massive crowds continuously walking. And some of them were like stumbling into the Juice Bar because it's right there. So they needed like a sign to rope it off. But overall, probably one of the better values of classes that we've done.
So you booked this like when you made your onboard activities, whenever you registered or whatever?
Yep. We booked
Okay.
that. We booked the whiskey tasting for later in the cruise. We booked Paulo's dinner and Paulo's brunch. Those were our add-ons.
Awesome. Well, what else did you guys get up to on your first day?
Nothing much. We didn't go in with any big plans other than just to rest, recover, and enjoy. So we had, I think, dinner in Enchanted Garden that night. So kind of spent the afternoon wandering around the deck, getting to know the Fantasy because we'd never been before, seeing what was different, saw the Europa area, that bar district area. Then it was also Casey's first time on that class of ship and her second cruise with Disney. So a lot of it was just kind of comparing and talking between the Wish class and this class, things like that. Ended up Enchanted Garden for dinner. Really, I forgot how pretty some of the like non-thematic dining is, and it's much quieter and it's much easier to talk to your table mates. I know the entertainment dining is the direction that Disney has gone in on the Wish class ships, like the Arendelle and all of that, but there's just something nice about not having constant stuff in your face and being able to just eat the dinner. But I say that we're adults only cruising, so we're not trying to entertain or keep kids, engaged, and that makes a big difference, I think, in what you're looking for in terms of dinner. So I really enjoyed Enchanted Garden. That was a win for us.
So the first day, did you use your beverage class as your lunch with the smoothies, or did you guys have lunch somewhere?
I think we just did the buffet, the Cabanas,
Mhm.
went and ate at Cabanas on the first day.
And what kind of stateroom did you have booked, and how did that work for you and your husband?
My biggest barrier to getting Nick to do concierge is he loves the aft rooms because they have these giant balconies. And until he can book that aft room concierge, it's always a fight because he loves that balcony.
You can. You just have to book a royal suite.
I know. I have to have like multiple bedroom ones. But
Yeah.
that's what I was telling him, was like, no, if we go all the way up. But he loves having the big giant balconies because it's big enough for 2 regular chairs, a table, and then 2 full loungers. And you can see the wake. It's really pretty when you're docked in port because you have like, 180-degree views of everything. And we often will order breakfast or do room service and just sit out on that balcony eating and hanging out. So we're very back of the ship. We did book. Our preference is to do an aft room for the deck, and then we put 1 floor between us and Cabanas, the buffet, just so that we're not getting the noise or anything like that. And we have a buffer deck. So I think that was deck 9 on that class. We've also done the aft on the Wish, like regular aft, not concierge. But that was our room, and it worked out perfectly, just like it always does, because you have a giant balcony, and I'll take like the blanket from the bed and I wrap up and I sit in the morning and I watch the sunrise if I'm up that early.
Let's stick with the ship here and kind of go around and discuss everything we did before we get into your port stops. Why don't we go ahead and start with entertainment? Tell us a little bit about the entertainment you did on the ship. You had mentioned you had pre-booked some activities. Tell us a little bit about how those were as well.
Yeah, so I'll start with the activities that we pre-booked. We did a whiskey class, which is in Cove Cafe. The whiskey tasting I always find to be such a great value on Disney. And it's something that we remark on because like we've been on other cruise lines, obviously, even more competitive premium cruise lines. And Disney has really rare and high-end alcohol. Like if you are somebody that's into that sort of thing, it's there. Disney has the pockets to procure these items and they have them on the boat. So for example, Blanton's can be very difficult to find. It's a quota bought, right? They just have it sitting at the bar and you could just have it if that's what you want. So the whiskey tasting class, they go through the whiskey. Most of the bottles that are, served up for your sampling are in the $200 range if you were to purchase it yourself. But the class I think is only $40 or $50 and you do 4 or 5 tastings. And you get a full history of like the distillery and where it comes from and the bottle and all of that stuff. And it's a pretty well-educated, well-done class. So we always like doing those. We have traveled and done distilleries. Like we've been to Bourbon County, we've been to Scotland and done like all of the Scotch distilleries. So we enjoy that kind of class. And it's at a price point that's accessible and not, ridiculous for what we're getting. So like that. The other thing we did, I joke, my favorite excursion in Nassau is Paulo's Brunch. Like I just want to sit and see Nassau. I don't need to get off the boat. So did Paulo's Brunch and it was wonderful as always. I don't think you can beat the service or the quality of food in Paulo's. It's just so good. I have done Remy's Brunch before, not this cruising. That was also excellent, but did Paulo's Brunch and actually had the same server that we had when we did Paulo's Dinner. Same table, everything. And Paulo's Dinner was also 10 out of 10. Again, can't beat the service, the food, all of it. Really enjoyed both of those kind of step up adult dining options. That did mean that we missed dining in our normal rotation.
Yeah, they will usually intentionally schedule you the same server if they're available, if you have one and then the other. I think that's happened to us most times that we've done a brunch and then a dinner.
That was our first time, I think, doing both in the same sailing, so that's probably why. But it was really nice because she remembered us and we're like, hey, it was like you're just keeping the good vibes and the party going,
It is nice because then you have a server that you have rapport with already.
Right, exactly.
And it adds to that elevated experience. What activities did you get up to on board the ship then?
Yeah, so a lot of just lounging and not moving since we had run the marathon. So did the pool deck, did the hot tubs, things like that. We did ride the aqueduct, which was freezing cold. It was actually like kind of cooler because there was that cold Arctic blast happening. And it's not that it was freezing, but it was like 75 out instead of 85 or 90. And the water that they're shooting through the slide was cold. Did that once and felt like that was more than enough. Jumped in the hot tub immediately afterwards, sat there for a little while, did the loungers on the deck, snacked on all the chicken nuggies and the french fries. In terms of more like entertainment, we did the Believe show at the main stage theater. That was really good. Did a lot of like just listening to music, like the guitar players or the piano players in Europa and the bars. Their talent is always so good. And it's such a great live music, just casual, quiet, kind of just hang out, have a sip. Did the Irish pub, which was fun. I like, again, the theming is just in the bar area, step up, I think, on the fantasy from the dream. And they had trivia and things like that, which were fun. What was the other stuff in there? Oh, Nick went and saw Moana too. I had already seen it. And Casey and I saw it together over Thanksgiving. He had not seen it. So he was like, let me go catch up for free. Because he has a firm, the only theater he's going to watch a movie in is the one on the Disney cruise ship. Like he has no desire to go to a local theater, but he will get the popcorn bucket and sit in the Disney cruise ship theater and watch. He went and saw Moana too and really enjoyed that.
I love that.
Very relaxing trip.
What about trivia? Are you guys trivia people?
We were trivia people. I didn't make it to the trivia stuff because I went to bed early. I'm like a 90-year-old woman. But Nick, Casey, and some other friends because we knew some other couples on the boat, they went to, it's called the Tube. It's like one of the main entertainment venues. And it's the wedding show where they have couples and they have to answer questions around each other.
Yeah, like Match Your Mate.
Match Your Mate, that one. And they talked about that show the entire rest of the cruise because it was hilarious. And so I missed out on it, but apparently it was really, really good.
It's so good. It's so good. We forgot to talk about that on my treasure sailing that Liz and I actually went to that show as well. So with being a 90-year-old, do you, joking of course, but are you first dining or second dining people?
So we're second dining people, mostly because we know that there's more kids and there's a lot more at the first dining. I think normally we would eat around that time of the first dining, but we purposely bumped to second dining just so it's a little bit quieter. The reality, though, is we end up in Palos and we end up eating on our balcony so many times that we don't end up in the dining room that often anyways. It's there when we need it a couple nights, but it's not like a every single night thing for us.
That makes sense.
Well, why don't we stick with dining here then? What other main restaurants did you end up attending? What did you think of those?
We did Animator's Palette, got the Crush scenery. I prefer the Sorcerer Mickey show over the Crush like Nemo show, but I did dress and run as Sorcerer Mickey, so maybe I was like holding out a little hope for that one. And then we did Enchanted Garden. Those were the two. And then the other 2 nights it was Palos and a balcony dinner. So like room service on the balcony.
Love that. And talking about Palo just real quick again, did you have any like highlight entrees from either of those experiences?
I did the ossobuco and it's always so good. The souffle, the one where they come out and they're like, hey, we make these to scratch and it takes like 45 minutes. So if you want it, put the order in now. And you're like, well, of course I need that. That sounds like absolutely dessert I need to have. And then
Steve listening out there in the world, everybody wants the chocolate souffle.
Oh,
Blake shaking his head no.
But it's funny because then you get to dessert and you're like, I am stuffed. I can't eat anything. And then they bring out the souffle and you're like, well, I guess I'll rally, But yeah, it was good. It was really, really good.
Love the ossobuco.
I think we have like a whole movement towards ordering that now on the show.
It was really good. And I know that they're moving towards making Palo more of a steakhouse and they had steak on the menu. And the steak is good. But I just feel like it's very easy to get a good steak, like in most places. And, I live in the South, which is like known for its food and its barbecue. So for me, the ossobuco is kind of the go-to item I order.
What about room service? So for the listeners, room service on Disney Cruise Line does not have a charge, which is amazing. You should just tip the delivery person. What do you guys usually order from room service?
So this was interesting because we had just come off Virgin Voyages. And if there was anything that I would be like, Disney just needs to revamp this, it would be the room service. And I didn't think that until I went to Virgin Voyages, which is kind of known for their food. What we ordered was the bolognese, which is basically like a spaghetti. And then they had a really interesting like Turkish flatbread item that was really good. It was like ground lamb and some mint inside of a flatbread. We also ordered like chicken nuggets and, kind of your standard fare. And it was fine, but it's a very limited menu, I think. Like you're not, it's hard to do multiple nights on the room service. They're definitely more gearing you towards the ship. And I do think the Wish class beats the Dream class because they have the like Donald Duck Katina, which is like, but it's Disney's version of Chipotle. And then they have a burger bar and all of that. And I know that the Dream class does have the pool bar area as well, but it's just so much better on the Wish. So you can get more variety of fresh foods and flavors, I think, on the Wish class, whereas this is it almost feels like the room service was a kid's menu with 1 or 2 adult items so that when you're ordering for your kids, you can actually snack on something too. It's not really meant to be a true room service. And in comparing to Virgin Voyages, 1, you ordered off the app, which was amazing because you could just go in and either say, I want it now, or you could schedule it for like the morning for breakfast or dinner or whatever. You could order everything from snacks, like I just want some popcorn or gummy worms, to like, I want the steak from the steakhouse. And they put them in bento boxes in a dry bag and they would just hang it on your door. And you could just like grab it. So there's a lot of variety of food. It was easy to get the food. I feel like with Disney, it's very like you're literally writing on a card for breakfast to hang on your door. And it's just continental like bagels and tea. Like you can't get a latte or anything like that. And then for the bigger stuff, you have to like dial on a phone, look at your app, walk through and talk through your options, get it brought in. It's just very cumbersome and a very manual process.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, I've never really it is kind of redundant and a little bit old school at this point, especially when they try to push you towards using the app nowadays.
Right. Yeah, and it's just like this is such a legacy, and you can tell because you're literally calling just a standard line, and you know this is going to have to go through like 4 more people before it makes it to the kitchen, right? Like you're just like does not make a whole lot of sense. So,
well, why don't we turn this towards the port? You mentioned you did not get off the ship in Nassau.
No, that's not Not something I feel the need to do. I think the Bahamas are beautiful. I'm not a big person for Nassau. It's not like my cup of tea. But I'm not like into Atlantis with the casino or anything like that either, or the Margaritaville, those kind of bars, like that's like high party. I want to sit on the beach and kind of have quiet and relaxation. And I can do that on the boat. I don't feel the need to pay for beach access when I have the boat and it's going to be empty because everybody's getting off. And I'm going to be at the private island the next day where I will also have beach. So I don't feel the need to pay for a beach when I'm about to have beach, if that makes sense. So
yeah, Lighthouse is arguably probably a prettier beach than most of your options that you'll find at Nassau.
I mean, Lighthouse is one of the prettiest beaches in the world. So absolutely. There's only a couple of beaches that contend with Lighthouse. And I would say that's Turks and Caicos and maybe the Cayman Islands, but I think it's better than the Caymans even.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it because this was the new and shiny of your ship. We had a little bit of conversation before your sailing, actually, about what to expect and what to look forward to. But then you ended up, I think, changing your plans for Lighthouse a little bit. So why don't we get into your day here?
Let's talk about it. So I have lots of thoughts on Lighthouse. I love Castaway Cay. I think it is incredible. There's a reason why the hype around it is as high as it is. Love it. I think with Lighthouse or Lookout, all of it, all of the names, you can see the potential, but it's a very different vibe right now. And we'll start off with when we got on the boat, there was another couple that was sailing and in their own group with yet another couple and stuff like that. They went straight to guest services and were like, hey, can we just put our name on a cabana list just in case one opens up? And lo and behold, one opened up. They invited us to it. So we had a family cabana at Lighthouse. That was clutch and it ended up being awesome. So we get off the boat. It's a very, very long walk. We clocked it. It's like half a mile. On our day, it was like 70 degrees and breezy. So it wasn't a big deal to do the walk temperature-wise. But if it were 90 degrees blazing hot, half-mile walk each way in the sun with no shade would be pretty miserable, I think. So that is something that I'm curious to see what they're going to do with. They did have golf carts taking people with mobility issues, but it's a long line for those golf carts. So it's kind of like by the time you're done waiting, you could have just walked. So we walk, but when you get to the end of the pier, you then have to get on a tram, and it's another 10, 15-minute ride on that tram. And I think when people hear tram, they think like the little ones in the parking lot at Walt Disney World. Like, no, this thing is going 30, 45 miles an hour. It's a real road. Like, there is no pedestrian access. People should not be walking, no bicycles, nothing like that. There are ATVs and these utility vehicles kind of flying down it at all times, and it's built like a road. It's not meant for pedestrians. So what happens is you get off this pier, there's a beach right there that's only cabanas, and that's the family cabanas. Or you can get on this tram, ride 10, 15 minutes, and get to the other side of the island, which is where the main stuff is. For me, that was fine. But with the family cabanas, if you had kids, you have to get on this 15-minute tram, leave the cabana you paid for to get to the splash pad in the water park, and then ferry them back again over and over and over. You're either not going to use your cabana or you're not going to do the water park. That's what it comes down to. Like, it's such a hassle to get between them. So in my mind, I'm like, I don't understand why this isn't the adult beach. Like the kind of the way it is at Castaway where Serenity is totally separated.
I don't understand it either.
Even more. So like we're on the family cabanas, right? And there's this big rock shelf into the beach, and they did warn us about it when we were going, and they're like, hey, just so you know, there's a lot of rocks right in front of this particular cabana.
What number were you at?
We were number 18. And we get out the cabana, and when they say rocks, I'm not talking about like the sand is rocky. They would have removed that. This is like a rock shelf. It spans probably 3-4 cabanas, and it goes all the way out into the water. And there's little pools inside of the rocks, which make it pretty. But again, fine for us as adults. We loved it because it was beautiful, and the waves crashed upon it. But we saw like little kids playing on it, and it's super slippery and it's sharp. And I'm like, these kids are going to like eat it. And like, mom's going to have a bad day. Nick went out snorkeling, and he was snorkeling in the water, and he's a couple feet above the rocks because it extends so much. And just a wave came and kind of pushed him down, which was fine, but it scraped him up a little bit. And he was like, he's a lot stronger and confident swimmer, and was able to push off. He's like, is there a little kid that's just kind of in the water? That's an interesting thing to say this is going to be the family beach when there's this natural feature there that's maybe not the most family friendly. There was no net out in the water to like prevent wildlife coming in either. There was a guy on a jet ski patrolling, but like if you're somebody that wants lifeguards and netting to like prevent sharks and stuff like that from coming in, that infrastructure is not in place. So again, totally fine for us as adults, but if I were there with my family or like my nephews or something like that, I think it would be a little bit of a different scenario. All of the cabanas have a very steep and large stairs to get to the sand. It's almost like a story or two drop from the cabana floor to the beach floor. Fine, but if you had somebody with mobility issues or, you know, a toddler with no sense of self-preservation flying off that thing, it's going to be, again, potentially problematic. So it's kind of one of those things that I'm looking around, I'm like, man, I'm so thankful we got this cabana. These are awesome adult cabanas. But I wonder if families are going to feel like they're going to get their value out of this when they're so far away from the family activities, when there's a lot of stuff they have to be on watch for. I will say we had a 1-year-old with us in the cabana, and they brought a pack and play and set it up. And he was young enough that, you know, he wasn't in danger or anything like that. He wasn't trying to run off the stairs. So that worked out totally fine. They had an iPad, which was nice, and you could change the music or you could order drinks like coffee, all of that. They had their own kitchen and food infrastructure. So all of that was wonderful. Like 10 out of 10, I would book it again. It's weird to me that it's a family cabana. So yeah.
Yeah, if you look on some of the original designs for the island, that is not where the family cabanas are labeled. And there's a whole separate beach that's next to that beach, basically behind those rock shelves, that was originally labeled as the Serenity Bay. So it definitely feels like maybe they were like, oh, we're running out of time here. We got to slap these up somewhere.
Well, I wonder if they'll end up changing it. If down the road it will become the adult beach. But right now, until they can build more infrastructure, this is how they're doing it. Because those cabanas are larger. It may be that on the other beach, they just couldn't build cabanas big enough for full families. So they said, okay, well, we'll say this is the adult beach for now because we only need to fit 2 to 4 people instead of 4 to 8 because they are larger buildings. The other thing is the cabana, you're supposed to get bikes included. So like your bike rentals are included, your snorkel equipment is included, all of that. But we didn't get the bikes because it's not safe enough to have the bikes. So the roads that I was telling you about, you can't bike on them, you can't walk on them. I think at some point, and to be clear, the roads are built in and like blasted out of rock. So when you're on the trail, there's probably 4 to 10 foot rock wall next to you on both sides as you're flying through this thing. So it's not like there's a shoulder that people could walk or bike on. It is like a thoroughfare just for these vehicles. I think that they're going to have to blast out or build a boardwalk next to it or alongside it. And that's eventually going to become the bike path. Or they're going to widen that road to put in a bike path. And it's the same thing for the nature trail that they have. We had friends who tried to go to the nature trail and they were like, oh, you can't go on it because we do guided tours. And those guided tours are literally when they stop traffic so that it's safe to walk on the road. Like you can't get into it.
So we've had listeners that have done the nature trail, but they entered from
the main part of the island.
Yeah.
So this was the main part of the island. There was a cast member at the entrance.
I wonder if they must have, for whatever reason, stopped it or whatever, because we definitely have had listeners that have gone, but fascinating.
But they stopped it. So I think that they're going to build out more infrastructure. And it feels like to me that a developer came in and they put in the roads and the water and the electricity and kind of the foundation, and they sold it to a cruise line. Disney happened to be the cruise line that bought it. Now they're layering in the pixie dust. And it's going to take a while for that pixie dust to sink in and really make it Disney. And that's very different from Castaway that they built from the ground up completely themselves and have had, decades of refining and seeping in that magic. You can tell there's a lot of potential. I like the Junkanoo cultural infusions. Obviously, being on the larger island where there are other cruise line, private beaches and stuff, there's an infrastructure and industry here. Like there's already industrial equipment on the island capable of building piers and cabanas and things like that, right? So that's going to go, I think, a long way towards expansions, and it'll be able to expand in a way that's not really feasible or makes sense for Castaway. I think Castaway's kind of peaked and hit where it's going to be. I'm very excited to see what Lookout ends up being, because other cruise lines have like overwater cabanas with water slides into the water. They have these awesome features that I think is just going to take a while for Lookout to get there. But the big thing is Lookout can. Like, it has the space, it has the infrastructure, it has the ability to do that. It's going to be a while, like years, before it can.
Yeah, I love Lookout. I think it's very beautiful, but it's unfortunate that even from when we were there in the literal first, inaugural sailing,
yeah,
that talking about it almost a year later, it's still got the same like half-baked features.
The other thing to know is, there's a lot of conservation to protect the ecosystem, which I love. But the way that they do that is it's boardwalks everywhere, which means you're funneling people in. You can't just wander around and disperse very easily. It creates pinch points. And the biggest pinch point is there's these natural sand dunes. So what they've done is they have a lot of loungers behind the sand dunes where you can't actually see the ocean, right? And you're between these boardwalks and you kind of feel like you're in a glass fishbowl. Not very attractive. And then there'll be a boardwalk entrance through the sand dunes to the beach. But the beach is pretty narrow. It's gorgeous, but it's narrow. So what happens is everybody wants to be on the beach side of the sand dunes. So it's overcrowded, and nobody wants to be on the behind the sand dunes because it's not a great place to hang out and lounge. So you kind of have this weird dynamic where it's weirdly overcrowded, but weirdly empty at the same time, just because of the dispersion of the people.
I'll ask one more question on this. If you had to pick a sailing going to Lookout or Castaway, and that was only one of the two islands, which one are you going to?
I would pick Castaway. That would be my preference. I would also do a sailing that did both, because it's not a bad thing to go to Lookout. It's still a gorgeous beach, still have all of the amazing food. You still have that Disney experience. I just think Castaway right now is a better offering and a better product. Lookout will eventually outpace Castaway, I think, but it's going to be a while to get there.
Yeah, Lookout feels very much like a beach day excursion, where Castaway is the full curated experience that I think you're expecting.
Yeah, 100%. Just things like snorkeling and having, the Prince Eric statue under the water for you to snorkel around and see. Like little things like that are very Disney and you wouldn't find anywhere else.
It's so interesting. I'm really looking forward to going back to this island. I go back in March, and the splash pad is 1 million times better for little children than at Castaway. And even the kids clubs, the way that they did the Oceaneer Club on the island, that I think
is better.
It has like a larger space. They can feed kids in there, so there's some advantages for that. My son now is too old, so we need somebody's feedback who sent their kid in there. But even some of like the little activities, like my son has done like scavenger hunts and some different stuff in the play pavilion there.
They had a cool, like when we walked up, it was like making your own Junkaroo head pieces and decorating it as like an activity. So what you're saying, it almost feels like Disney was like, let's improve the kid experience and do more now that we have more space and infrastructure.
Yeah.
So it may be that Lookaway is a better option for a family. Just maybe don't spend the money on the cabana if you're going to be taking advantage of all of the activities on the other island.
And don't forget anything in your cabin also, because it's so far away. If you were like, forget that item is gone, dead to you. But it is pretty. So yeah, like you said, bringing it back around, as the island even improves more, it has the potential to be so much more.
Oh yeah. You can see the potential too. Like it's definitely there. I think it also just gives Disney so much in terms of they can add that port. They can bring more ships into that port. They can expand that port. If for some reason the weather is bad and they can't go to Castaway, they can take people to Lookout, or vice versa. There's a million smart reasons why Lookout needed to happen and be built. I just think we're on the front end of it, right? Whereas we're on a fully mature product with Castaway, this is like the initial offering with Lookout, and it's going to continue to be built out and refined. So you just have to take that in mind. I think your point about like maybe the kids' activities in the Oceaneer clubs and stuff like that is well taken, because there's stuff that they can do there that they can't do on Castaway. So maybe that's where they're leaning in first, which would make a lot of sense too.
Any other notes on your sailing as a whole before we wrap it up?
No, just continue to love the Disney Cruise Line. I think it's just The customer service and the food is really good. I'm excited. Now our next cruise is a year from now on the Destiny. It'll be interesting to go back to a Wish class ship. Kind of, we've been pinging back and forth between the two, like Wish Dream. Now, it'll be fun to fresh eyes compare again.
Well, we are hitting on a time crunch here, and you did some of the work for me and hit what is next for you. So do you have any notes on disembarkation or any of that before I close it out?
No. So we are very much first off the ship people. We don't check our bags. We don't do the luggage tags. We get up at whatever it is, 7 a.m, have our stuff packed. We walk off the boat, and the entire process is maybe 10 minutes. Like, we walk off, clear customs. You don't even have to talk to a guy now. They just scan your face as you mosey on out, and then exit 3rd floor parking garage, load up the car. And boat to Starbucks is 20 minutes. So
love that.
So yeah, if you have anything about Run Disney, or you're just curious about deep dives on cruises, DVC, anything else Disney related, you can find me at Once Upon a Marathon on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thanks again so much for coming on and sharing you and your husband's experience on the Disney Fantasy. And we will hope that you come back on next year to talk about your experience on the Destiny.
I'm counting on it.
Alrighty. Thanks for coming on, Amanda.
Bye.
Well, Christy, where can our listeners follow you?
You can find me at Pack Your Pixie Dust all across the internet, and my website is packyourpixiedust.com. You can fill out an information sheet if you would like any assistance booking a future trip for yourself and your family.
And you can follow me at MouseGen on YouTube and Instagram. And of course, you can follow our podcast by searching DCL Podcast or going to DCLpodcast.com. And you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/DCL Podcast.
We have such a good Patreon program.
We do, and our Patreon Facebook group is a little gem of the internet for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was talking about. Not just that our program is great. It's our little community that we started, but they've made it a community. And so, yeah, definitely if you want a little bit more Disney Cruise Line in your life, you can come check that out.
Absolutely. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Well, that's going to wrap up the show. Once again, we want to thank Amanda for coming on and sharing her experience on the Disney Fantasy. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We also like to thank our Patreons once again for helping make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailings and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.